Hey everybody, what's going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you all. So this is what I'm actually really excited about, as I really like this deck. We're going to be taking a look at zombies here today. Zombies might not seem like a particularly standout deck, especially in this meta where there's really one deck that tends to just stand out above all the rest. I think we all know the one I'm talking about, but zombies are actually a fantastic deck, even in this current metagame. And I find myself coming back to them quite a bit. This list is pretty similar to the one that we were running last season, wherein we decided to just jam a bunch of very unfair things to do in order to fight the Tier Element Menace. Now, I have made a couple of adjustments since then, and I actually have made one very minor adjustment since I actually showed this list off in my video where I showed off all the decks in my collection currently, which was 29 at the time. And that is that I added Fairy Tail Snow because I forgot to have Fairy Tail Snow in my deck. So she wasn't in for some of the games that we played that you're going to see here, but for at least half of them or most of them, I did manage to remember to put her in the deck there. So what do zombies do in this meta that make them stand out in particular? Well, honestly, one of the big things, you might think that it's just the fact that Zombie World can, a lot of the time, not always, but a lot of the time shut down Tier Element's ability to fuse, and that does end up being a decent bit of it, but for me there's a couple of different things here, and this is actually kind of more of a minor, just additional bonus that Zombie World happens to be pretty decent. Again, not all the time, but usually against Tier Elements. But there are a couple of unfair things that this deck just kind of does inherently. One of them is Braver hand looping, or hand ripping rather, not looping. We're not taking out all the cards in our opponent's hand, but we can take out at least one, and if we have access to Baron to bring back Braver during the next turn, we can take out two of them. So that is going to be one of the more powerful things you can do with this deck. Of course, we're utilizing Braver with the Smoke Grenade and the Rod of Silence. Level 9, as far as synchros, is actually very easy to make in this deck thanks to Uni-Zombie. Uni-Zombie really just makes pretty much any synchro monster you want relatively easy to make. Uni-Zombie is probably, like, you know, disregarding how powerful a tuner is within its archetype, just standalone, like Uni-Zombie might be one of the best tuners of all time. It's such a very useful card, being able to adjust not only its own level, but the level of any monster on the field by sending monsters from your hand and deck to the graveyard. Very nice. Another pretty unfair thing this deck can do is set up potential Scythe locks. Now, you might be looking at the extra deck and being like, well, wait, we don't have Dogda. How are you actually supposed to set up a Scythe lock in this deck? Well, we're not even going to bother, like, setting the Artifact Scythe in the Spell Trap Zone and blowing it up. We're not doing anything like that. We're just going to try to mill the Scythe. Just getting it into the graveyard is all we need to do. The way that we actually summon Scythe and utilize the extra deck lock during the opponent's turn is, you might notice on Scythe's effect that the only condition, like, you don't have to actually blow it up in the Spell Trap Zone. It just has to be special summoned in general, just from anywhere during your opponent's turn. So if Scythe is in your graveyard while you have Zombie World up, it counts as a zombie monster. Red Eye's Zombie Dragon Lord is a level 10 synchro monster that says during your opponent's turn, a quick effect, you can target one zombie monster in your graveyard, except Red Eye's Zombie Dragon Lord, and special summon it. So there we go. That's pretty much how we do it. We just, again, get Scythe in the graveyard, just by milling usually, or we do have a couple of ways specifically to send it. Of course, there is Foolish Burial, but we also have the Shooting Riser Dragon we can often use to send the Scythe as well. So just get Scythe in the graveyard, not too hard. Get a Zombie World up, not too hard, especially given our three Necroworld Banshees. And then from there, you just need to make a level 10 synchro, which again, definitely not difficult to do in this deck, especially with the Uni-Zombie there. So we can hand rip, we can set up a Scythe lock, and then the other third unfair thing that we can do with this deck is end on a Towers in the form of Psychic End Punisher. It's a level 11 synchro, but again, we have not only Uni-Zombie, but the Punk engine as well. The Punk engine just naturally makes it very easy to make Psychic End Punisher. And there's a lot of times where Tier Elements are not able to out a Towers, especially one as big as Psychic End Punisher. Psychic End Punisher, I pointed this out last time we did deck profile on this, but Psychic End Punisher, with just one 600 life point payment from Ze Amin, can even boost itself up to 4,100 attack points, which is 100 more than Tier Elements can manage. I think the strongest monster Tier Elements can summon is Roll Close, boosted by Perlarino and Dweller will boost her up to 4,000, but that will put her out of range from being able to actually battle over the Psychic and Punisher. So, yeah, we have a variety of different ways in which we can do some unfair stuff to our opponent. Of course, we have a very wide-ranging extra deck besides that, as well as the Doomking Balerdroch, which is a very good zombie boss monster. So, let's go ahead and start by breaking this list down card by card as we always do. And then, of course, as always as ever, I've got some example gameplay, including us beating up on tier limits, that we'll go ahead and take a look at following the profile here. So, we are playing in this build 1 Glow Up Bloom, 3 Maxx, 1 Shinobi Necro. This is very useful just in general to have extra level 2 tuners on the board. Banishing zombie monsters is not difficult at all. 3 Uni-Zombie, 3 Ash Blossom with Joyous Spring, 3 Noh-P.U.N.K Ze Amin, 3 Mezuki, 3 Shiranui Solitaire, literally just here to get Uni-Zombie because it's that good, 1 Fairy Tale Snow, 1 Gozuki. This is like kind of an MVP of the zombie deck. I almost want to play a second copy. Just its ability to foolish any zombie monster, bring itself back, and then banishing zombies from the graveyard is very relevant for Shinobi Necro, as we already mentioned in another card we'll talk about here in a moment. So we're playing 3 Necroworld Banshee, we are playing a full Shizu engine, so we have 2 Keldo the Sacred Protector, 3 Mudora the Sword Oracle, 2 Kelbek the Ancient Vanguard, and 2 Agido the Ancient Sentinel. Might seem weird to have millers in the tier limit meta, but I think it's still fine. You know, we do occasionally play against not tier limit sometimes. Kelbek is just a great disruption tool in general as well, and Agido can sometimes be a good extender. We're of course playing Artifact Scythe, as we already mentioned, Noh-P.U.N.K Deer Note. Changshi the Spirado, this is another zombie monster that really likes to get banished, and is actually very, very good because it not only special summons itself when banished, but can then, much like Gozuki, end up foolishing any zombie monster from your deck to the graveyard. So, very good card. 1 Doomking Balerdroch, 3 Noh-P.U.N.K Foxy Tune, 3 Noh-P.U.N.K Ogre Dance, 1 Alghoul Mazera, another card that can special summon itself when banished, also can summon itself as level 3, which is potentially useful for synchroing. We're playing 1 Foolish Burial, 2 That Grass Looks Greener, 1 Smoke Grenade of the Thief, and 1 Rite of Silence Chaos for our Braver, 3 Zombie World, 2 Emergency Teleport for Ze Amin, of course, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, and then 2 Forbidden Droplet. I could probably think of a couple more engine cards to throw in, but just decided to have these just as potential board breakers as well. Okay, so that's the main deck. Now for the extra deck, we are playing 1 Immortal Dragon, 1 Shooting Riser Dragon, 1 Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, 1 Skeletal Dragon Felgrand. This is definitely the weakest card in the extra deck and the one I summon the least often. Could see myself throwing in Warlord Savage Dragon or just another good, generally good synchro monster instead. We have 1 Power Tool Braver Dragon, 1 Baron de Fleur, 1 Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying, 1 Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord, 1 Psychic and Punisher, 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 The Zombie Vampire, 1 Vampire Sucker, 1 IAP Masquerena, 1 Vampire Fascinator, and then 1 Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess. For those who aren't familiar with the vampire links, Sucker allows us to basically just get some more recursion by drawing some cards when we summon our zombies. Occasionally summoning one of your opponent's monsters back is kind of useful, but that's a little bit rare to be honest. Fascinator. This card can allow us to steal cards from our opponent's graveyard when it's link summoned, and then it can potentially sack itself to even take control of an opponent's monster as well. So, doesn't come up too often, but when it does, it tends to be pretty good. So, alright, there is our list. Now let's take a look at these games. Okay, so for our first duel, as I touched upon earlier, we are going to be beating up on tier limits. So, let's go ahead and dive into this game here. Looks like we're going to be taking the second turn. Not ideal, but what can you do? At the very least, though, it looks like we do have a Maxx to kind of fall back on, as well as opening Forbidden Droplet here is pretty lucky. Although this might have been when I was playing 3 Droplet. Like I said, I ended up adjusting the build slightly. I literally just took out the 3rd Droplet for Fairy Tale Snow, so might have been the case here. I don't remember when exactly this game was in relative to that, but in any case, my opponent's going to start with Terraforming for Perlarino. Then they're going to Foolish and Agido. I don't think this is a good move at all. I mean, I guess I am a 60-card deck, but still, you got to figure if I'm on grass, like I like getting milled, so I just think this is a little bit weird. Well, it's going to end up milling, honestly not great off of it. They hit some millers, or not millers, shufflers, but that's about it. Otherwise, we're going to have to kind of resort to normal summoning the Rhino Heart here. So I do get to summon the Necroworld Banshee. That's going to make this Merly It's going to make it a lot more difficult for them early to be able to summon Kickless. My opponent's going to have a tier monster in hand, but of course I have the Mudora here, so it's not even going to be a factor. Opponent doesn't even bother chaining their shufflers, which is a little surprising, but totally fine. They do get to blow up the zombie world with Pearl Arena because of course I shuffled some stuff back, but that's definitely better than having a play. So they'll set 2 and pass after that. Gonna start with the Kelbek here, pitching Keldo, not activate, or sorry, other way around. Activate Keldo, pitch Kelbek, and I am actually going to activate the effect to get it twisted here and start milling, which looks a little bit weird against tier limit, but looking at the rest of my hand, there's not really a whole lot I can do with it here. Not anything super great anyway. Plus, I mean, I've already got 1 shuffler on board and a droplet. Like, things should be fine. So I end up hitting an Agido. I'm going to continue to mill, especially now that I have a Necroworld Banshee in the graveyard as well. That can, again, be used in order to put Zombie World on the board, which is going to make it very hard for my opponent to actually be able to summon the... what is it called? The Kickless here. Alright, so the other Rhino Heart's coming out of the graveyard. They do actually have the Tier 1 Shira in their hand, and now I have this. So they do actually have the ability to set up that fusion, like I said. You know, Zombie World by itself is not a guarantee that your tier limit opponent will not be able to fuse, but that's also why we are, of course, playing the Miller, or the Shuffler. I always call the Shufflers Millers at first. That's why we're playing the Shufflers here. We can just use Keldo to go ahead and fix that up. Now, our opponent has their own Shufflers as well, so, you know, it's still going to hurt they're putting back our Balerdroch and Mezuki here, but, you know, worse things have happened. Then putting back the Punk stuff is completely irrelevant. It's totally fine. Okay, let's see. They end up milling Merleys. We managed to mill another Mezuki, which is really good because our last one just got put back. Opponent's Perlino is going to blow up our Zombie World. This was to be expected, but this is fine. Yeah, there's not really too much else my opponent can really mill here, I don't think. So opponent does end up getting to put an El Shaddai window on the board, but I've got this droplet in my hand, so, like, yeah. Totally fine here. Only need to send the 1 card, so I'll just send the 1 Mudora there in order to negate Winda. Now I'm going to normal summon Havness, or normal summon Ze Amin, just mostly to get this Havness out of the way once I activate the effect. Opponent does look like they hit more Shufflers, but I think they've used all their Shufflers by this point already, so... yeah, they've already used them already, so not a whole lot more they're able to really do here with that. Alright! Now we can actually get started with our plays, or we can try to. I'm going to activate Mezuki. My opponent's actually going to flip up Exchange of the Spirit. Wild! Our opponent's actually swapping decks and graveyards here, which is completely fine, to be honest. We lose our target for the first Mezuki, but now we just end up milling our others 2 Mezukis, and we have even more targets for them, which is, you know, of course, completely fine. We have the Uni-Zombie, we have the Balerdroch is back in our graveyard, we have another Banshee that we can potentially use here, so plus all our Zombie Worlds got put back in our deck, so I'm completely fine here. And in fact, as you can see, I'm just going to go ahead and go for the Psychic End Punisher. As I've noted before, it can be very difficult for tier limits to out the End Punisher. I probably should have banished the window though, because that would have made it even more difficult for my opponent, because they would have only had the 1 special summon, but I also thought that it might end up coming up, so... that, like, you know, I might need more special summons, and the window might end up being a problem ultimately, so I just decided to just get rid of it now and play it safe. I'm definitely also going to put back this Exchange of the Spirit just in case my opponent ends up managing to land a Gravekeeper's Trap on the board. Yeah, no Balerdroch for me, but that's fine. We do still have the Psychic End Punisher, which is at 4,100 attack points. So I'm thinking here that, like, yeah, you know, I don't think my opponent's really got an out for this. Most people really don't play an out for this, like, again, Punisher right now, because Tower's effects really aren't that common in this meta. I'm also definitely going to go ahead and Keldo in response to this Dark. Don't want them to, you know, steal any of my monsters. And we can put back their other Exchange the Spirit and Cyberstein. Here comes Kelbek. I'm going to fire off the Zombie World just in case it ends up being relevant, but lo and behold, I actually managed to find a tier player who's still playing Underworld Goddess, and that does end up being enough to out the Psychic End Punisher, so that sucks. And at this point in the duel, I was thinking, like, cool, good. I'm really glad, again, I found, like, one of the very few tier players who's actually still on this card. But, yeah, you know, I guess, you know, it happens. So I'm going to use my Foxy Tune to send this Glow Bulb, also get out Ze Amin, but mainly want to summon this Balerdroch here. I'm going to activate Ze Amin, and I thought I could use Balerdroch to banish the Underworld Goddess here, but it turns out Balerdroch, the banish effect doesn't target, and I always forget this about Underworld Goddess, but she is unaffected by card effects unless they target specifically. So, yeah, did not end up doing as well during that turn as I would have liked, but I do get to trigger my Alghoul Mazera off of my opponent attacking here. That will not only prevent my Balerdroch from being destroyed by Mazera banishing itself, but then I get to bring back Mazera as a level 7 monster. It's going to be very useful for making a Baron, which is targeted destruction that I can use against the Underworld Goddess during my next turn here. So, going to use Balerdroch's effect to negate the Rhino Heart as it's activating because I have Zombie rolled up. Rhino Heart is a zombie monster. Let's go ahead and activate Ze Amin's effect before we sync her with the Alghoul Mazera in order to make the Baron Defleur. As I mentioned before, this is targeted removal, so I can actually use this to get rid of the Underworld Goddess. And I can even tack on Balerdroch's effect on top of that in order to banish my opponent's Rhino Heart as well. From here, I can just normal summon Kelbek and then end up smacking my opponent directly. So, yeah, that's, you know, that wasn't, like, I guess, an ideal showing of our game against Zero Elements, because ideally, Psychic End Punisher would have been enough by itself in order to close out the duel, but as you can see, even when the opponent does have an out to the towers, we still have it here. I think there was actually a world in which my opponent was still able to come back, even without an Underworld Goddess, because I think if they would have crashed some amount of their tier 1 monsters into my Psychic End Punisher, then their life points would have been lower, and then my Punisher would have been able to be affected by card effects, but of course by that point they've already used their battle phase in order to just deal damage to their own life points, which is still definitely not a terrible outcome when you have End Punisher on the board. So there is that first duel, quite a bit of a back and forth one there. Let's go and take a look at some more gameplay here. So this duel is going to be against Numeron. This one's going to be a little bit more brief, but I wanted to show off like what all this deck can potentially do when it just gets to go off on turn 1, as our Numeron opponent here, from what I recall, doesn't actually end up opening too much disruption, if any at all. So here I actually managed to open up with the grass, but I'm first going to normal summon Uni-Zombie and start by activating that effect. I'm basically just testing for Ash Blossom here. When my opponent doesn't use it, then I'm going to go ahead and fire off that Grassling Screener. Let's go ahead and pause real quick. We of course already see the Gozuki and Alghoul Mazera, but here is everything else I milled. As you can see, I did end up hitting another Mezuki, as well as a couple of my Necroworld Banshees. So really, as long as you hit at least one of each Necroworld Banshee and Mezuki off of grass, that's generally about all I'm really like needing. But of course, you know, we have a lot of other stuff to send as well. So you can high roll pretty hard off of grass like we're doing here. Gonna bring back the Alghoul Mazera as a level 7 monster. We also get to summon the Balerdroch as well from our hand, thanks to Gozuki. I get to use Mezuki to bring back Ze Amin. Remember, Zombie World is on the field, so every monster in my graveyard is a zombie, meaning Mezuki can bring back any one of them. Now I get to sync for 10 to make a Baron Defleur. Gonna use my Foxy Tune next, pitching yourself in Shinobi Necro to get out another Ze Amin. Now I can use my Mezuki to bring back that Deerno that's in my graveyard, and you might think I'm going for level 8 Chaos Ruler, but I'm actually just going to go ahead and go for level 9 to make my Braver Dragon. Start hand-ripping our opponent, see what they're up to, see what's going on here. My Deerno, because it was sent to the graveyard, gets to bring back the Foxy Tune that's in my graveyard. Very nice there. Alright, here goes Braver, equipping the Smoke Grenade that gets negated, destroyed by the Rod of Silence, and you can see they were on Numeron there. I'm just going to go ahead and hit the Numeron wall. Otherwise, all they had was is it Lava Queen? Is it the Lava? It's the Lava Golem that only tributes one monster. Is it Lava Queen, I think? And then Hey Trunade, Lightning Storm, and Cosmic Cyclone. So during my next standby phase, I'm going to use Baron's effect to bring back this Braver Dragon. Just go ahead and get rid of that Volcanic Queen. That's what it is, not Lava Queen. Get rid of that Volcanic Queen. I am notably going to use my Baron to blow up my Braver because, again, I want to hand rip my opponent again. So now during the standby phase, Baron's effect activates, bringing back the Braver Dragon, equipping the Equip spells in the grave once again. Smoke Grenade is going to pull the Volcanic Queen, as my opponent just top decked a limiter removal, so it didn't end up being relevant at all. And then I get to even bring back the Doomking Balerdroch during the standby phase. And my opponent's going to concede there. I've summoned everything in defense mode, so Lightning Storm doesn't do anything. Hey, Trunade and Cosmic Cyclone could get rid of Zombie World, but it's too late for that to matter. And their last card, Limiter Removal, is just pointless. Basically, during my turn, I just switch everything to attack mode and attack for lethal. So that's kind of an example of what this deck can potentially do on turn 1 if it goes uninterrupted. And as you can see, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot. And it's one of the main reasons, again, why I love this deck so much. It just does so much. I think it's really cool. But again, that's a more idyllic turn 1. Let's go and take a look at some more back and forth gameplay here. Alright, this next one is going to be against Tearlament once again. So, get to watch this deck do a bunch of unfair things against a deck that is somehow even more unfair. Especially, I have to emphasize somehow, especially when you remember that we're playing Scythe Lock and Braver Hand Ripping and a Towers. Like, the main meta deck here is still somehow more unfair. So, this might look a little weird, the E-Talia before the Grass, but again, I was testing for Ash Blossom. My opponent was actually very wise to hold back. Not only did they not activate Ash Blossom in response to E-Talia, but I didn't even get priority pass to me when I was playing this game live, which means they had the toggle set to off. So, very, very nicely done. Very well played there, but I will still use the Ze Amin effect here to grab a Foxy Tune from my deck. Now I'm going to activate Foxy Tune's effect. My opponent has a Gamma. I'm actually going to Ash Blossom here, so this will not stop the Gamma, like, permanently. My opponent it'll just go back to their hand, and the Gamma's not once per turn, so my opponent can just activate it again later. But I did really want this effect to resolve, because now the next opportunity my opponent has a chance to Gamma, I get to chain block this Chaos Ruler effect behind the Deer Note. So, yeah, they're going to have to use Gamma now if they want to. And they do end up using that. If they'd let it resolve, it actually would have been a little bit tricky for me, because you can't just go into Zombie Vamp, because then Gamma just gets that. So, I don't know. That would have been it just would have been a completely different scenario by that point. But in any case, the Chaos Ruler is going to resolve. I'll go ahead and add the Foxy Tune here and just set everything else up in the graveyard. I am going to activate the Kelbek's effect. I suspected, because my opponent had Gamma, there was a decent chance they weren't on tiers, although there are some tier lists that do play Gamma. And as you can see, my opponent did end up being on tier limits, although, to be fair, we also, well, I guess we just milled that Keldo. We didn't already have it in the graveyard, but we did already have this Mudora in the graveyard. So, you know, to be fair, we also had the Shuffler, which was another reason I was more willing to take that risk. I know I've said in a lot of videos, like, don't activate millers against tier limits, like, well, I guess if you're not playing tier limits, just like, you know, during your turn or in general, really, but and this is kind of what I meant earlier, too, when I said I still like having the millers in the deck. Like, just because tier limits benefit off of millers doesn't mean it's, like, always incorrect to activate millers against tier limits. It just takes a bit of a nuance. So I still haven't normal summoned somehow. I'm going to normal summon this Mezuki and then link off for a Vampire Sucker. This will allow me to trigger the Mezuki's effect in order to bring back my Foxy Tune. Now, my goal here was to bring back Chaos Ruler, but as you can see, the other light monster in my graveyard is Artifact Scythe, and I definitely don't want that to go, so I'm going to have to use Foxy Tune, sack another copy of itself in order to special summon the one from hand. I do have to banish the Balerdroch in order to bring out the Chaos Ruler here, which is definitely not ideal, but I'm going to go for it anyway, because I really want to Scythe Lock my opponent. That's really what it comes down to. I just want to Scythe Lock my opponent here. Alright, so I'm going to activate Gozuki's effect. Opponent's going to fire off their Kelbek. That is honestly perfectly fine with me at this point. We hit our Mudora and our Snow, so that's pretty rad. We have Zombie World up, so can't really summon Kiklos here. We have Shufflers in the yard. I am going to target their Mudoras, which I suspect they're going to use now. And my opponent, from what I remember, actually took a long time to think about this, but they do end up targeting the Artifact Scythe. So, they did end up having that foresight. But, with everything I have on board here, it actually doesn't even matter that they're putting back the Artifact Scythe. I'm going to end up Scythe locking my opponent anyway. And I will be more than glad to show you how. First, I'm going to Shinobi Necro to bring itself back. Going to use Shiranui Solitaire. The reason I sacked off the Vampire Zombie was because it doesn't have a level, and I'm about to do a lot of synchroing. This will let me bring back the Uni-Zombie, and now I can adjust the Shinobi Necro's level to go for the Shooting Riser Dragon. That will allow me to set up the Artifact Scythe in the graveyard once again, and of course I don't plan on using its effect this turn, so the limitation there from the Shooting Riser doesn't matter. Now I get to use Mezuki to, funnily enough, bring back Maxx, so that I can go for a level 10 Synchro monster, the level 10 Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord. So that was a lot of summoning during my first turn there. Of course, that was because the Millers end up getting triggered, but now during my opponent's draw phase, I'm just going to go ahead and bring back the Artifact Scythe. I get to draw a card off of Vampire Sucker, but far more importantly, I have now locked my opponent out of special summoning from their extra deck during this turn, which tier limits, as fearsome as they are, without their extra deck, really don't end up doing anything at all, honestly. So, yeah. Alright, let's go ahead and see what's going on here. Ah, yes, I'm just bringing back the Fairy Tale Snow once again, in response to it getting shuffled back. I'm going to put the Shiren face down, not that it really matters, again, because I can't make a rank 4, thanks to Artifact Scythe. And yeah, I mean, really anything they do here, right? Like, nothing they send off Rhino Heart's going to matter, no amount of milling they do is really going to end up mattering. Rhino Heart can battle over Uni-Zombie, but that's, like, literally all that my opponent's going to be able to accomplish here, so... With what I have on board, it's not going to be hard at all, and in hand as well. It's definitely not going to be hard for me to... I could honestly probably just find lethal this turn, but really what else I could do is I could even start like looping my Scythe in again. As you can see, I had my Uni-Zombie up to level 5. Basically, I can sync the Uni-Zombie and the Artifact Scythe to bring out Baron de Fleur, and then if my opponent ends up somehow living through the next turn, then once again during their draw phase, Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord. Well, I would need a Zombie World on field first, to be fair, but Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord can just start bringing Artifact Scythe back again. So, there is yet another win against tier limits. We do have one more duel to check out in this video. Let's go straight into it. And our last duel for this video is going to be against Sprites. I don't remember much about this game off the top of my head, to be totally honest, but we'll just see how it ends up playing out. Looks like we are taking the first turn. Oh, I opened grass here, right? Oh, no, I didn't open grass. Okay, I was thinking of a different game, but... Alright, cool. So, this hand is... It's okay, you know? We've got the Ze Amin, we've got the Keldo as an extender if we need to. I'm going to start with the Ze Amin going for the Foxy 2F, of course, going to bring out the Deer Note. Then going to go ahead and sync off for a Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon. Now, of course, had I known I was up against Sprites, I definitely would have utilized this Kelbek to start milling at some point, but... As always as ever, when it's turn 1 and you don't know what you're up against, just kind of have to assume it's tier limits. So we're seeing a pretty familiar combo line here that we've seen in a few other pile decks, that is making the Chaos Ruler with the Ze Amin and Deer Note, and then using Deer Note to bring back Foxy Tune. Then we can use our 2 level 8s to make the Zombie Vampire. Zombie Vampire, even though it mills the opponent, is a little bit safer, because if you end up milling a tier limit monster, you can just use Zombie Vampire, like we did actually, I think, in the very first duel. I should have pointed this out, but we milled a tier limit Merly from our opponent's side, so we just went ahead and special summoned it, and then that not only milled us our top 3 more, but also on top of that, then the opponent doesn't get the Merly's effects, because of course it's not in the graveyard. Once we saw that our opponent was on Sprites here, now I just have no problem at all milling willy-nilly. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Could have actually made a Braver Dragon there, but I ultimately decided not to. Not with that 5 and 4 anyway. I'm going to make Vampire Sucker and then use my Mezuki effect to bring back one of my punk monsters, since it's a zombie, thanks to Zombie World. Now I get to bring back my Chaos Ruler once again. Banishing Shinobi Necro to do that. Shinobi Necro comes back because it was, banished. Now we can get our Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord, although I don't have the Scythe set up in my graveyard, do I? No, I don't. I mean, the Red Eyes Zombie Dragon Lord is still, I think, fine, but... Yeah, this was actually a very wonky end of board, that's right, because I think what happened here, if I recall correctly, is I thought I had the Scythe set up in my graveyard, but I didn't, so... I do get to, however, use Red Eye Zombie Dragon Lord to dodge this call-by with the Maxx, which is pretty cool. Yeah, this turn 1, even though I didn't get interrupted, was definitely not an ideal turn 1 at all. Going into the Vampire Fascinator, I'm not even really sure why I did that, to be honest. I think it was mostly just to get the Cyber Sign out of my opponent's graveyard so that they couldn't just bring it back with Sprite Elf and then kind of screw me up that way. So opponent is going to be under Maxx here as they start to make their plays. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much just going to go ahead and fire off my Balerdroch in response to that Sprite Elf, and I think my opponent realized that they just ultimately decided to concede then and there. So yeah, there are games, and I hope you all enjoyed them. Like I said, I really enjoy this deck, so, and normally I don't like to talk about, like, you know, how popular on the channel decks are, but I know last few times I've posted zombies, they don't really get many views at all. This deck tends not to. So if you actually watch through all these games, thank you very much. I really appreciate that because I really like this deck and I think it's really good, honestly. Again, even this tier limit meta, as we can see, it can very much hold its own. So let's go ahead and move on now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack, you'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.